celebrating 16 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Michael Wright.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. This is Michael Wright. Welcome to the broadcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm going to say a word. You give me your first reaction. Chicago.
Home.
Home. What was it like growing up in Chicago?
It was great. It was all about sports and what's new and trending and everything moving forward in life. It's just a great place to be.
My wife is from Chicago, well, Chicago area, Maywood.
Okay.
What part of Chicago did you grow up in?
Actually, I was Forest Park, which is right next to Maywood, honestly.
Yeah, so Chicago's an interesting place. It's so diverse, but it's almost like sectioned off.
Right.
Like
right.
It's different sections. What was it like growing up in Forest Park?
It was great. You know, it was a small town feel, right outside the city, right there at the end of the L, so you could jump on that, get downtown. But not too crazy, not too congested. Diving.
When did diving come into your life?
So I started diving my freshman year of high school. I had a gymnastics background. My mother actually runs a gym in Chicago or in Forest Park, TriStar Gymnastics, and so I grew up kind of a gym rat, playing on the mats, after school and that stuff. And when I got to high school, I was introduced to diving, and it was kind of an easy transition. So,
were you always a great swimmer?
No, I wasn't always a great swimmer. I believe, we went to the pool all the time in the summer, and I liked to swim. I wasn't great, nowhere near the Phelps level, but I did like to get in the water.
Right, so your mom's a gymnastics coach, and she's got she runs a gymnastics program there in Chicago, and you're around the gym all the time. So you had this ability. This was fun. Tell me about your dad. Was he a track coach?
Yeah, so my dad was a track coach. He coached high school level and a little collegiate level in Chicago, and he actually ran in college, and that's where my mother was a gymnast in college, and that's where they met.
So you've got the DNA for this.
Yeah.
Did you run track as well?
I pole vaulted high school. It was midpoint of hitting a growth spurt. I had the knees killing me and the ankles and all that. I didn't do it long. Father was, encouraged me to stick with it, but that was just a
so you have this gymnastics background and you start diving. Mm-hmm. You said in high school. When did it just kind of hit you like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it wasn't later till about my junior year of high school where I took it serious, and I said, this is something I could really pursue and go to college on a scholarship and take off with this.
So what made you so powerful? Was it just your gymnastics background, or was your technique such that you were just like, I'm killing the game right now?
It was a little bit of both. It was the mindset that my parents had really instilled in us, and a mixture with the athletic background, and the drive to win. I've got two older sisters that are real competitive, and being the youngest one, no matter what I picked up or whatever sport I tried, I wanted to be the best at it.
Yeah, you stoked the competitive fires. What is the most difficult dive that you had to learn that you finally had that moment of, I just did that?
I would say front 4.5 on a 3-meter springboard.
Front 4.5, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and
into a dive, right? Yeah.
How do you do 4.5?
It was hard. It was one of those dives at the end of my career I finally started to work on, and it was just kind of the ultimate challenge as a diver of what to work on and how to compete with the best.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing about people who perform well at anything is, how do you figure out how to get better at getting better, right? Mm-hmm. From a diving technique perspective, I want to kind of dive down. That just happened. I want to just kind of dive down into understanding a little bit more about diving, because you are now coaching at the University of Tennessee. You went to the Olympic trials. You've had a very distinguished career, but I want to talk about diving because I want to talk about mindset. And I know that you have a degree in sports psychology, so I know that's a big part of your background. So why don't we take a break? When we come back, take me to diving school.
All right.
Right? Teach me how to dive. This is Anything is Possible. This is Michael Wright.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
I went to a junior college because academically, I didn't have a right mindset in high school. It was disappointing to me that I didn't take responsibilities in my own hands sooner.
This is Anything is Possible. And I'll tell you, Michael Wright is my guest, and I'll tell you why I'm chuckling. And my best friend, John Wright, who's not related to you, is in the other studio. I'm somewhere near Huntsville, Alabama. It is a hot summer afternoon. A bunch of us guys around the pool, and then some motivation shows up. So we're at this pool, and they've got a diving tower, and we're daring each other to go up, right? And so guys are going up, and they're going off. I can barely swim at that. I don't know how to dive at all. But I also I have been very competitive in my life. And they're like, you won't go. And there was motivation beside the pool. So I climb up to the top of the platform, and I'm looking down. I'm like, I'm just going to go for it. And I didn't realize that when you come off a platform, you really don't have to do much.
You don't have to have any kind of lean. Got plenty of time to fall.
So I do that.
Oh, man.
And I go over, and I'm coming down like this, and my back hits the water. Pow! I go under, and I come out, and I get out. I'm good. My back is on fire.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like hitting.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the reason I want you to teach me to dive, because I embarrassed myself in front of the motivation. When you're diving, and you said front 4.5, right, on a 3-meter springboard.
Correct.
Where do you look, first of all, when you're doing a dive?
In the start of your dive, you're kind of looking at the end of the board. You're trying to adjust where your approach is going to land, where your takeoff is going to be. And once you figure that spot.
So walk me through how much space you need and how you calculate that.
So from a first day of practice, you kind of teach or learn a hurdle or approach. That's what we call it as you walk down the board to get ready to jump off. And that approach is actually measured out, and you find out exactly where the same spot you should start every time. So you'll know every time you do an approach, it's the same takeoff.
When you get to takeoff, though, there's a complex movement that has to propel you into rotation.
Right. And there's a real specific timing, and you can hear it when you watch the Olympics. There's a rhythm or a beat that the board does, and you know that a diver's on a perfect synchronized time with the board to maximize the jump.
What is that beat?
Okay, so it's just it's hard to explain. It's a sound. As a diver, you know, you can hear it. And if you hear a diver clunking and the board slamming, you know that it's offbeat.
Wow. So you have to learn that.
Yeah, you hear a rhythm while you're approaching that when you jump, you know when to land and when to catch it.
What muscle groups have to be defined, and how do you fire to get maximum rotation?
There's a lot of quads, hamstrings, calves.
So do you work on that? Are there?
Oh yeah. It's a predominantly a lower body sport. I mean, you're not in the weight room hitting the bench press at all. You know, you're doing squats and box jumps and sprints and that kind of stuff.
So once you have the explosive movement off the board, where do you look? Because I could never figure out where to look.
Right.
As you're doing.
All you see is the water. Then it's over. There's technically it's a posture that you're looking to find. It's a good chest tall, eyes up, forward posture. Now the board bends, so it's automatically going to start tilt you forward. You got to fight that tilt and really stand tall with your posture. You ultimately want to go up and not out.
Talk about the psychology of diving.
I mean, we joke as coaches that say diving is 90% mental, and really it takes the mindset of you're throwing your body off of 20, 30 feet in the air to do multiple rotations and spins to land in water without a splash. You got to have that adrenaline mindset that you're kind of a seeking adrenaline junkie.
Are you?
Yeah, I am completely. And I think that's why it's helped me get as far as I have been.
I haven't seen a lot of African-American divers, let alone diving coaches. What's that been like?
It was interesting. In 2010, when I won the USA national title, I became the first African American to win a national championship title in the sport of diving. And when someone told me that, it was caught me off guard. You know, as I sat there and thought about it for the next week or so, I realized diving is typically a country club sport. You know, not to generalize it, but the demographics you see in swimming and diving don't typically tend to reach a lot of diversity in ethnicities now. So the fact that I kind of broke that barrier and said, you know, it's okay to get in a Speedo and get in a pool and do diving. You don't have to worry about stereotypes. Get out there and do what you love. You know, it's been awesome for me to really set that tone.
Have you had, you know, when you break that barrier, have you had young people come to you and say, seeing you do that really opened up possibility to me?
Yeah, and as even last week, I was at a diving competition with some of my youth kids, and I had a parent from another team, another program, a young African-American girl, about 10 years old, said she saw me in the Olympic trials, watched me in the news, and she started diving right when she saw that and thought it was interesting because she'd never seen somebody, a role model in that position for her to look up to, you know, and that was just one of those things that just hit you in the heart, you know, one of those real humbling moments that just said, it's all worth it, you know, everything I've done right now, for someone to come and tell me that, you know, makes it all worth it.
Why did you choose coaching?
Both parents are coaches. Actually, and my older siblings are coaches too.
Oh, wow.
So we've got a coaching background, and I had a couple opportunities to continue as a professional athlete and take different avenues, but I knew coaching was ultimately what I wanted to do. I like inspiring youth and teaching others and really pushing everyone else to reach their full potential.
So you just followed your passion. And you didn't have anybody to tell you don't follow your passion.
Right,
So
right.
That was a great thing. But has it been just an easy roll? You wake up, your parents are coaches. You go to you go to where your mom coaches gymnastics. You learn to flip. You decide to flip over water. You win the USA. You go to the Olympic trials. And then you show up at UT and you get degrees and not a single problem in your life.
No.
Yeah, is that the story? Is that the movie?
I wish. You know, honestly, I feel comfortable talking about the path I took to get to UT and where I am to even have a master's degree. It was rough. I went to a junior college out of high school. I transferred to UT actually, and I went to a junior college because academically, I didn't have a right mindset in high school.
Really?
I didn't have the mindset that academics came first, and it wasn't anyone else's, you know, problem or issue. My parents, you know, they were on me, and it wasn't till the end of school that I finally realized it was time to grow up and mature, and that's why I took the junior college route. Not to find an scapegoat or different path, but to realize that I need to take one more step before I can handle reality and move to Division I and really pursue what I want to pursue.
Was that disappointing to your parents?
No. You know,
Was it disappointing to you?
It was disappointing to me that I didn't take responsibilities into my own hands sooner. It was a great learning experience. You know.
So when you're at a junior college, are you still diving?
I was still diving at that time. There was actually a junior college in Florida that offered me a scholarship to come down there and dive, and you know, I said, well, it's sunny in Florida. I'll move away from the winter of Chicago.
Lots of motivation.
Yeah, there was some motivation behind going there. But ultimately, I knew I needed to get my academics right and work on my associates to really prove myself and to get my mind right before I made the next step in my life.
So when you got to UT, you were like, this is my shot.
Exactly. I knew, you know, I had used 2 years of eligibility at the junior college, so I'd only had 2 more years at Tennessee. I knew that as soon as I stepped foot on campus, it was my time to prove my point and really take advantage of that opportunity.
In our next segment, I want to come back and I want to talk about the mindset of a champion. Because this is one thing to be competitive. It's another to win the USA. That's a whole other thing. I want you to kind of teach me where a person has to go, or specifically where you had to go to get in that gear that all champions get into, to not just achieve, but to win. All right. We'll talk about that in a moment. This is Michael Wright. He taught me how to dive. That thing that happened in Alabama 35, 40 years ago, John, that's behind me now. I will dive before my life is over.
All right.
More in a moment.
Coming up,
It's those who make corrections that keep moving forward and progressing, and those who make excuses are the ones that sit on the sideline and watch life pass you by.
So you win the USA, you go to the Olympic trials, but how'd you shift from a guy that was, you weren't on point with your grades, you end up at a junior college, and then you transfer to UT, but then you go on to be a champion. Where'd you have to go? What'd you have to do? What changed? What are the habits? What are the thought patterns of a champion?
It was the influence of my parents, really. My mother specifically kind of telling me along that path that, you can't give up, and there's so much ahead of you and opportunities ahead of you that will come and go, but it's only that when you take advantage of those opportunities that you'll move forward. And I think everybody makes mistakes, but honestly, something in my mind once told me, it's those who make corrections that keep moving forward and progressing, and those who make excuses are the ones that sit on the sideline and watch life pass you by.
Ooh, say that one more time.
So it's everyone makes mistakes. For those who make corrections, they progress and move forward in life, and those who make excuses sit on the sideline and watch life pass by.
Jeez, that's strong.
Yeah, so that was the mindset that, I have an opportunity in front of me, and if I don't take this opportunity, someone else will. So I had to take advantage of every opportunity I had, whether it was to shake hands with a president or at the university or to influence other coaches or learn from other coaches. The idea was I have a certain amount of time to take advantage of what's in front of me, and so I went forward and just took advantage of every opportunity I had, every day, every morning, every night, every classroom, every professor I spoke with, anybody who could share knowledge. I took advantage of that opportunity.
How grueling was the training?
It was hard. We trained 2 or 3 times a day.
Talk me through what a training day was like.
A training day, we're up at the pool in the mornings, typically around 7 a.m. We're in the water, we're stretching, we're doing conditioning. We do a lot of dry land training, which is like trampolines and diving boards and the belts, harnesses. Then we go to a class throughout the day, come back in the evening for another 2 or 3 hour workout in the water, weights, practice, that kind of stuff. So
how many dives do you have to do before it starts to become, where you move from just pure technique to where it's ingrained and now you can focus on nuance?
It really just depends. Every diver has a different strength and weakness. Some divers are good at twisting, some are good at forwards versus backwards. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, so it's really just kind of fine-tuning at this level of, trying to excel at your strengths and minimize your weaknesses.
You have a daughter.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
As you're starting to raise her, what's your vision for her, and what kind of dad do you want to be, and how do you want to model possibility for her?
When I was in school, when I started school, I was actually an artist. I was a graphic designer, an art major, my bachelor's degree. And then people ask me, my wife's pretty tall, and they say, is she gonna dive or play volleyball or swim or something? I said, well, she may like music, she may like art. I think it's the mindset that really anything is possible, and whether it is athletics or academics or music, I want to provide as many opportunities as possible for her to find her niche.
What does it take to be a great coach?
The endless pursuit of knowledge. Really just the idea that every day you can learn as much as possible in 24 hours, and at the end of your life you'll still never know everything. The mindset of every day you've got to move forward and you've got to learn more, and be willing to exchange that. Although you're in the coaching role or the leader role, you can learn a lot from athletes, and you can learn a lot from those who are below you.
What's the number one thing that you've learned maybe in the last couple of years as a coach? What was one of your moments where you said, wow?
Honestly, it's tough to say. I've learned a lot over the last few years. I think one of the biggest moments that has impacted me is sitting down with our sports psychologist at the University of Tennessee while I was an athlete, and the idea that everybody has to have the holistic mindset, that there's a balance between your physical and mental and emotional and spiritual being, that if you don't find that center of balance, you'll never really truly find that internal love and passion for who you are. And you've got to be happy inside before you try to move forward with anything else.
You feel like that's where you are right now?
Exactly. I feel exactly. Yeah. I feel between my new daughter and where I'm at athletically and career-wise, everything's pretty balanced right now.
Pretty good. Are you still diving?
I'm not still diving, but I still train.
Do you ever tell a young whippersnappers, let me show you how it's done?
Oh yeah, a few weeks ago, I had one of my athletes try to tell me he knew what was better, and I had to get in and show him how it's done. I had no problem showing him how it's done. It hasn't been that long since I've been on board.
I love the way that you get this certain look in your eye. I mean, you have a very calm demeanor, but it seems like there's a tiger over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's real, thanks to your older siblings.
No, yeah, for sure.
I think your life is a model that anything is possible.
Direct,
and thank you for sitting down with us, teaching me diving. And one day we got to get. I'm not going up high.
We get you at the pool today.
But I want to get somewhere in there, and I just want to make one successful dive. If I could just go,
we can make that happen.
And if I can just not. You know, when you see those dives that are just like, just one.
Now, the only thing you're going to have to do is get in a Speedo.
Anything is possible. We'll see you next time.